Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be nurtured together. May we be nourished together. May we strive together. May our learning shine, and may we not quarrel. Arjuna's likes and dislikes in the previous sessions have been temporarily suspended, by which his vision now becomes sensitive to realities which were previously neglected. For example, a small child, despite being in the presence of music, which an adult can appreciate, the child does not understand that. Why? Because that ability, that vision, that divya chakshuhu for the child is not yet fructified, not yet mature to pick up the tone, to pick up the appreciation of the music. So you can have two same people, and one can fully be immersed in that music, and the other simply does not pick up that flavor of that music. So in that same way, Arjuna's temporarily, these impurities have been put away, thus his sensitivity has been increased, and he can pick up realities which were previously not appreciable. And he initially expresses his wonderment. That is his first step. I first express wonderment to what is being shown to me. It's like with any experience. But then through the course of time, then you start to think about what is being shown. So then your experience changes from wonderment into something that is more about how does this relate to me? Am I afraid of this? So Arjuna is going through a series of emotions. And he's also seeing, of course, in this emotion, it means he's seeing the entire Vishwarupa. So obviously he's going to have so many emotions at the same time. And this Vishwarupa encompasses the entire universe, including time. So now we talked about time last week. Now what is time? Time has two Shaktis. The first Shakti, Shakti means power in Sanskrit, is the creative or the manifestation principle. And this is because there is a time factor attached, if you think about it, to anything that is manifested. There is no object that comes to fruition, that comes to birth, unless there is also time attached to that object. In fact, you cannot think of an object growing or manifesting unless you also attach or include time with that process. So what we mean by this is both on a macro, that means the entire universe of objects, and the individual objects are also all coming with time attached to them. The second Shakti is the destructive, the unmanifestation principle of time. So this very same time that we just spoke of is also the cause of decay, aging, our bodies aging, our bodies decaying, anything in the world decaying, changing, that is, disappearance, loss, family members, loss of our own brain cells, loss of our own knowledge through the course of time. So this is all a second Shakti of time. And it includes not only of the entire universe, but also of all of the objects in the universe, both subtle like the mind and gross like the physical object, which I can perceive through my five senses. So this time, from the standpoint of the destructive aspect, is what we call Lord Shiva in the Vedic culture. And we've also seen that this all-pervading time is symbolized as the mouth of Ishwara last session, which is devouring and swallowing living beings. Whoever comes into it, it just swallows it. And they are rushing into this mouth. Rushing how? Just like metaphor last week, like the rivers. Many multiple rivers are all gushing into the one grand ocean. Or many insects are flying, rushing towards the flame in the lamp. In the same way, all of these living beings are rushing towards this mouth, and they're being devoured and chewed because time is the great devourer of objects in the universe. Arjuna is unable to accept this because he's obviously happy. He's having wonderment about creation, about the birth of new objects of beauty. But when it comes to the dark side, and we shouldn't even say dark side, but more like, even though it is also the dark side, the side that we don't want to address, that we want to look into fully, then Arjuna is unable to accept it. Why? Because Arjuna, like most of us, is accepting reality partially. This means I thought I assimilated the knowledge until I saw the destructive aspect. I thought I was firm in my Vedic knowledge until I saw my own mom or dad die. Then you see how firm you really are. So this means this is the reality of life. We can talk about this, in this webinar, but in real life, those close to you, then you really see how firm that knowledge is. Now, Arjuna is confused. He's also frightened because he is seeing all of these people, including his close ones, entering the mouth. And he says to Krishna, "Oh Lord, I see you destroying everything. Therefore, are you Vishnu, the sustainer, or Shiva, the destroyer? What is your function? Because I don't know anymore." Knowing all of this now, where is place for compassion? Seeing that you are doing nothing but devouring and eating people. And then Bhagavan, on the basis of this question, answers between verse 32 and verse 34. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kalosmi Lokakshayakrit Pravridhaha Lokan Samahartumiha Pravrittaha Rate Pitwam Nabhavishyanti Sarve Yevastitav Pratyanikeshu Yodhaha.
Bhagavan said, "I am time, the destroyer of people, the one who is all over, whose activity is to make people age and die here. Even without you, all these warriors who have assembled in the opposing armies will cease to exist."
Kalaha Asmi. So Bhagavan answers, I am the reality of time itself. So the meaning, what does this mean? It means your attitude that you have towards time, that reveals your understanding of Ishwara. Oh, time is going so fast. Time is going so slow. How you make use of time, that reveals your true understanding of Ishwara, because time is not apart from Jagat. And what's the truth of Jagat? Ishwara. That's why a true bhakta, the one who really lives this knowledge, they enjoy a devotional attitude while living. What does this mean? They understand that living is time, because we're never not experiencing time, progressing forward. So living is time, and time is Ishwara, who I happen to be at one with. So my relationship with time is my relationship with myself. Meaning even time itself can be used as a reminder of the presence of Ishwara. Common question, how do I worship all knowledge, all power when it's formless? Time. When is time not going on? What do I meditate on? Time. Every second that's passing, that is Ishwara itself. So to understand this better, to understand time better, I want us to look at, Robert, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to make the point that a lot of people, especially as they age, and I'm in a good position to talk about that, they see time as an enemy because we're not as beautiful as before, or we can't run as fast or whatever. But you would only see time as your enemy if you believe that you are the Ahamkara. Otherwise, it can't be your enemy because it just facilitates the development. It's nothing to do with you.
Good, excellent. So time can either be my enemy, but that entirely depends on what we do during time and how we treat time itself. That means what kind of activity do we have in time itself that determines how we look at time itself. Yeah, so it all depends on our actions. To understand time better, I want us to understand two standpoints of the one reality. The first standpoint is what's called Vyavaharika Satyam. What is Vyavaharika Satyam? This is your empirical transactional reality. That means the reality that you deal with every single day, including time, space, and object. Vyavaharika is the reality of seeming duality of opposites. What do I mean by this? Up, down, arrival, departure, growth, decay, birth, death. So this is all that we're familiar with. None of us are only familiar with birth. We're also familiar with death. We all know about up and down. So this means no one can deny the fact that there is a apparent presence of duality. This is called Vyavaharika. What else is Vyavaharika? It is creation, maintenance, and destruction. I spoke last week. Born is gone. We're all familiar with these three magic words. This is all Vyavaharika. And Vyavaharika is governed by laws and orders, like law of karma, which is, when I say law of karma, what I mean is law of cause and effect. And also law of dharma. This means, what is dharma? Intrinsic moral principles. That means, when I say intrinsic, it means they're inbuilt. And they are moral principles that sustain harmony of the universe. Not only on the grand order, but also on the micro order. They're sustaining your body, running 24/7. The heart never accidentally just stops beating, goes, oh, oops, I forgot to beat. It continues beating unceasingly. The earth never goes out of orbit. This is all Dharma. This means Dharma is not only knowledge of what is right, but it's also that knowledge which maintains and sustains the order of this entire universe unceasingly. Now, to gain knowledge of this Dharma, or to assimilate and live and to abide by Dharma, that takes time, does it not? Yeah, like with anything. This means I have to, I have to practice. I have to, practice non-injury. I have to practice being honest to myself and to those who I speak to. This is we'll speak more about Dharma in chapter 13. But just generally, ahimsa, non-injury. So all of this takes time to practice. So what does this mean? It takes time to practice. So the best way of devotion to Ishwara is by aligning oneself with Dharma. Because I'm taking time, which is Ishwara, to align myself with Dharma, which is Ishwara. And how do you do this? By involving yourself with the Shastra, because the Shastra is the word of Dharma. Now the question is, why should I live according to Dharma? If I can see adharmic people getting away with it, right? They're making so much money. It's all adharma, making big comments, big lies, falsificating evidence, creating conspiracy theories. They seem to be doing pretty well. So why should I follow Dharma? The reason is because by following Dharma, first of all, you are aligning your thinking in harmony with the whole. Now you say, okay, so what? So what is this whole? This whole is what's called Paramartika. This is the second order of reality. Paramartika Satyam. What is Paramartika Satyam? The truth of Vyavaharika Satyam. No pairs of opposites. Brahman. And what is Brahman? Limitlessness, limitless Ananda. Is that not what we're all seeking? Who wants limitation? Nobody. In other words, the only way your and my intellect can fully capture Paramartika, the final reality, Brahman, that means Aham Brahmanasmi, is by having a healthy relationship with Vyavaharika. So Vyavaharika is an intermediary. That means I cannot understand the highest without going through what I find myself as a relative person in through day-to-day transactions. It's kind of like, suppose you want to be a really good cook and there's a great chef. And suppose you don't, get along with that chef very well. Are you really going to get the knowledge that you're seeking if there's constant arguments between you and the chef? No. So this means in order for me to gain the knowledge, I have to go through an intermediary called the chef, and by having how? A proper relationship with the chef. Only then I can gain what I'm seeking. In the same way, Vyavaharika is the intermediary by which I can capture and assimilate the final reality called Paramartika. Now, what is a healthy relationship to Vyavaharika? Now you know what Vyavaharika means, in reference to destruction. So let's go back to this destruction word that we were discussing last week. It is to see destruction and loss as necessary as creation. That's the first step, because we often see destruction, creation necessary, but destruction unnecessary. For example, without destruction, you can't grow. Isn't it growth that brings you joy? Yes, because growth requires what? Old to die to give space for the new to be born. And we all love to grow. We all love to evolve. This means we all love destruction, whether we know about it or not.
Shouldn't we then sort of think of it like transformation instead?
Good word, yeah, transformation. So when we transform, it's kind of like a butterfly, right? Maturing it so it can free itself. So in that same way, we are transforming from the old into the new, metamorphosizing. So if the mind is not ripe, then what's going to happen? It's going to distort the final reality called Paramartika and live in its own imagination. So how do you fix that? By destroying my false notions, which are causing me to live in a bubble. Again, destruction becomes my best friend. So let's put another question. What is a healthy mind in context of specifically embracing loss and destruction? What does it mean to have a healthy relationship with loss and destruction? First of all, you can ask, what is the cause of thoughts coming to my mind right now? Suppose there are some unpleasant thoughts. You ask, what's the cause of these thoughts coming right now? Why? Because whenever you ask that, you're actually asking, I want to look this into a different way. I want to see this from a different angle. Does that not imply destroying the old perspective only to give birth to a new perspective? Yes. Another way to ask is, how will I use my free will today? How will I use my capacity to choose today? Not tomorrow, but today. Free will has three Shaktis: Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Icha Shakti. All of us come with these three Shaktis. What is Jnana Shakti? The ability to know. Who doesn't have the ability to know something new? Unless you're an animal. Icha Shakti, ability to desire. Who doesn't have the ability to desire something different? Kriya Shakti, ability to do, to perform. Who doesn't have that ability? As long as you got 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain, you got all of these 3 powers. Now, what does it mean to say free will? Free will has 2 options, if you think about it. The first option is to do something different. And the second option is not to do anything. Now, when I say not do anything, this is further split into 2 categories. There is, I'm not going to do anything because there is fear in me. This is called the Yudhishthira category. This means I'm not going to act, I'm just a nice person. I'm just going to let go. I'm using my free will to not do anything because I'm a nice person. Mahabharata war started because of that. And the other category is, only to my understanding, this is not worth my time. This means it is an informed, deliberate, wisdom-based non-action. Furthermore, if you don't embrace Ishwara as a destroyer, then what's going to happen is the mind is going to put Ishwara into the category of devil or how do you say, the sinner, right? Because Ishwara is, the destroyer, so he's the devil. He's the one who destroys. And when you see sin winning benevolence in this world, that means winning God in this world, what's the person going to conclude? Who wants God? The one who cannot even get rid of, who cannot even fight sin or evil. So you can see how one single notion starts a trajectory of thoughts that continue, that reflect that one false notion. Also acknowledging the old moment, as I said, because every old moment gives rise to a new moment. All of these examples are destruction. So we can start to see now that destruction is actually your best friend. It's only because of destruction that you are today enjoying whatever you happen to be enjoying. Now, in the context of the Mahabharata, it says, Sarve na bhavishyanti, the verse. So right now, says Krishna, my function is destroying these people who have allotted enough papa karma, thus they cannot escape the momentum of their inevitable destruction. Therefore, Arjuna, rete api tvam. For this reason, their destruction is going to happen whether you're involved or not. Because the momentum of their papa karma is far too great and nothing is going to stop thus their destruction. Furthermore, it says, Pratya nikeshu yodhaha. Both soldiers on both sides, whether they're on the Dharma or the Adharma side, will have to die in this war. Because the situation, they find themselves in a situation where both will die. So this means it's not personal. Sometimes we think, oh, why me? Why am I in this position, God? It's not personal. You just happen to find yourself in that situation. Now, what's the next step? That's the question. This is what we call Swa Dharma. Instead of complaining, I say, I am where I'm at. Now, how do I make the best use of it? According to my talents, according to my skills. That's called Swadharma. Facing the moment and dealing with it maturely, appropriately. Tasma tvam uttishta yasho labhaswa jitva shatrun bhung shwarajam samriddham mayai vaite nihataf purvam eva nimitta matram bhavasavyasachin.
Therefore, may you get up and gain fame, conquering the enemies, enjoy the prosperous kingdom. These people have already been destroyed by me. May you be merely an instrument, savyasachin. Tasmat tvam uttishta. Therefore, may you get up. Please stand up and fight, says the Lord. The main idea conveyed here is, may you do your duty. This is the plea of the whole Gita. Right at the start, Gita makes it clear that only knowledge liberates, nothing else. If you want to be free, if you are a mumukshu, you must have jnana. To gain moksha, there are two distinct lifestyles. One is a life of renunciation, sannyasa. The other is karma yoga, doing one's duty with Ishwara Pana Buddhi. Sometimes that duty may be fighting a war, as it is here. This, however, is not merely a war, but a fight for justice, dharma. The law of karma has made karma has made all this happen the way it has happened. Arjuna has not in the least sought this war, but he is a kshatriya, and his station in life requires that he protects the law and order of the land. Therefore, he has to fight this war. It is his duty. So when Krishna says, therefore, get up and fight, Arjuna, he is saying, do your duty. It is your job to protect Dharma. So do what has to be done.
Yeah, in terms of a sort of a question, can you be both someone on the path of Karma Yoga and a sannyasi?
Good. It is Karma Yoga is referring to Grihastha Ashrama. This means a householder, the one who's got active involvements, duties, work. This is more common today. We used to have in Vedic culture a lot the sannyasi approach. Today it is not as practical, especially in the Western world. However, there are two distinct lifestyles and a person has to choose.
The way my day works out, I have family, I have children and grandchildren, and I deal with all that. but I spend my days basically alone.
Yes. So this is still a grihastha, because grihastha means I am involved with, it doesn't matter if you got your time alone, you're still involved with family. So we need to know what a sannyasi means. It means that I've renounced everything. That means I live in an ashram and, I'm there entirely as service to whoever comes to me.
No, that's not me.
This means, there's no family, even parents, you put that away. It's just entirely God. That's all your vision is in.
It could be somewhere in sort of like the middle. There is grihastha, then there is vanaprastha also. Retirement sort of stage in between sannyas and grihastha.
Yeah, vanaprastha would be, we have to change our definitions according to the modern times. Vanaprastha is kind of like living in the forest, like Rama, Sita. Today, the vanaprastha would be more like, now that I've retired and my life activities have settled, now it's time to put away the socializing, the excess socializing. I'm not saying completely, but it's time to put my focus on the scriptures and just immerse myself in devotion. So, verse 33. Because the time has come to perish and the momentum is far too great, this war of destruction will happen. And then Krishna motivates Arjuna. If you do get involved in this war and you do proceed, then Arjuna, you will gain name and fame for protecting the side of Dharma. Whereas if you run away from the world in your little own comfort zone, justified as vanaprastha or sannyasi, in the name of abandoning duty, getting away thinking you can override Dharma with personal likes and dislikes, justified as vanaprastha or sannyasi, then you will gain an unpleasant position, including in the next lifetime. Even you will accumulate or may accumulate papa karma, because you as a kshatriya, your job is to stand your post, to protect the society from dissemination of adharma by the Kauravas. And if you abandon that duty, that is actually typically a crime, because you're the one that are meant to do this.
There's so many things in this world, like around us or far from us that are happening, events that are happening quite undharmic, not dharmic, but yet we don't know whether this has to happen, and that is the way that karmic lives of people have to go through. This verse links to that. Like Arjuna he had to fight a war. If he didn't fight a war, then he's going to have unpleasantness. So, a lot of things happen around us, but that's why I get confused. Like, even though in our eyes it doesn't seem right, but why does this happen? Why people get killed or why people get destroyed? Is this part of your karma, or is it?
Just to say it's part of your karma, I think that's a big generalization. We first have to, why do things happen? It happened because what's called fate and free will, which I will get into. And the interplay between fate and one's own free will causes them to be exposed to the situations that they're in. For example, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, how many interplays between them took place for them to be finally at the war? It started at childhood. So the whole war took several years to come up to that place. So to now say it is one particular event that makes people do what they do, that is not a proper vision of life. In other words, so many events take place which make people do what they do. So the point is, am I doing actions that are in line with Dharma or out of Dharma? I cannot now attribute to talk about other people because I don't know their lives. We can only look into our own lives and ask, is my action one of duty, one of Swadharma, or is it avoiding what is facing me? And if I'm avoiding what is facing me, this is called a mission. What is a mission? Denying what is facing me right now. And if I deny what's facing me right now, then it's going to come back.
Andre, I saw it in this section also. I don't think that Krishna was just offering Arjuna state knives, by this you get a kingdom. Wasn't just appealing to his ego to get a kingdom. I thought he was also saying, you will be admired, and therefore others will follow the path of Dharma because you become an example of someone following Dharma. So I think that was much of the motivation behind it, to reinforce Dharma in others' minds.
Yeah, good. So definitely Arjuna needed some, because obviously he doesn't want to fight. So it's Krishna's job to motivate Arjuna. So he's using some examples that a Kshatriya would find empowering, like, you will have the recognition, you will gain the kingdom that you so desire, and people will respect you, they will follow you because you're the one who took a stand and went into a very difficult situation and you protected Dharma. So they will remember you as the one who established and protected Dharma. Now, if I said this to you, you'd be like, okay, you got a good point. I think I want to fight now. So Krishna is trying to now motivate Arjuna. Okay, and then Krishna also says, Maya eva ete nihataha purvam eva. All these people, like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, have already been destroyed by me, Arjuna, because their prarabdha karma has reached the next logical step, which is elimination. What is prarabdha karma, you say now? Prarabdha karma in English is called fate. That means that which is meant to happen on the basis of past actions. For example, if I go inside a shop and steal something, and there are cameras looking everywhere, and I think I got away with it, and I come back home, and the police knocks on my door, that event is traced back to what? Something that took place before. So that event in the present is called prarabdha karma. That is called my fate, on the basis of what? Of what I've done yesterday, stolen something inside the shop. In the same way, these people have already been destroyed by me, says Krishna, because they have done enough actions whereby the next logical step is they deserve their death, because they're on the battlefield. So this means the means of elimination varies, like disease. Some died through disease, some died through war, some died through accidents, but the elimination is inevitable. Reminds me of the movie, I think I watched Final Destination. You watched that movie? Where the individuals are supposed to die and they're avoiding death. And so many things happen, they're like dodging death, but eventually death catches on. Like the Lord Yama just is right around the corner. So they're going to die one way or the other. I'm not saying now that's how it is, but it's got a good point, the movie. And because of this inevitability of the fact that they're going to die, Savya Sachin, even Arjuna, if you use just your left hand in battle, they will all fall. In other words, just act. That's all you need to do to fulfill your Swadharma, Arjuna. What is Swadharma? Getting involved with what's facing me right now according to my strengths and talents. For example, suppose you got a hostile person and they need to be dealt with. Like they got got a gun or something. And they decide to call a negotiator and a policeman. What's Swadharma of the negotiator? To negotiate peace talks with the hostile person, to present opportunities, perspectives, to alleviate the restless mind of the hostile person, to talk, to console, to converse. If that fails, what does the negotiator do then? He transfers and says, okay, policeman, you do your Swadharma now. I do not have the gun. I don't know how to shoot. I know how to talk. So my Swadharma is talking, negotiating. Your Swadharma is physical activity. So this is called Swadharma. I perform or I get involved with what is facing me right now according to my unique talents and my unique attributes that I enjoy, that I have, that others find hard. So this means the policeman does not negotiate and the negotiator does not shoot. Nimitta matram bhava. May you become instrument in my hands. Don't waste time, therefore, protesting, running away from life into other seemingly easier paths that seem a lot easier and simpler and more enjoyable. Nor should you complain by your apparent shortcomings. I think we all, kind of can acknowledge our shortcomings. I don't know how to speak Spanish. That's my shortcoming. I wish I did. We've got more shortcomings than non-shortcomings. How many things do you not know compared to what you do know? I can just go on forever. In other words, don't spend time complaining about what I am not good at, but rather focus on where is my specific strength? Where does my talent, where does my Swadharma lie? That's the best time you can possibly use on earth. Put all the time, energy, and effort on my Swadharma and forget about those things which you're not good at, because you will never be good at it as long as you're a human being. Instead, be my mere instrument, Arjuna, of eliminating adharma, because their destruction is assured. Now, it seems like this line specifically, Bhagavan is saying, Arjuna, you're only an instrument, a puppet in the hand of the Lord. Everything is already decided in advance. Your only function is to fulfill my will, the will of God. Everything is predetermined. This was meant to happen, Arjuna, according to my grand script. This is what it sounds like so far. In fact, this line is a major boost for fatalistic people. One of the favorite lines in the entire Gita, this one simple line here. The ones who shun away free will, they will get attracted to this like bees to honey. What do they say? They say, we're all humble puppets on a stage, dancing on a string. Just surrender. Free will is an illusion. Bhagavan alone is the doer, the enjoyer. He's the karta bhokta. Now, the irony of this is it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if I don't believe in free will, or if I don't acknowledge my capacity to choose A to B to C, then the person is not going to respond appropriately to a situation. And that's going to produce a conflict. And that conflict is going to then revalidate, you see, I told you, my life is fated to be hard. That's how one simple notion changes the entire course of life. So let's analyze this line particularly. It implies two arguments. The first is everything is already predetermined. And the second is because it's predetermined, consequently be an instrument of the Lord. And any resistance to being God's puppet produces pain. Firstly, rejection of free will is against the teachings of Shastra. In the Shastra, fate, when I say fate, what I mean is what is happening to me right now. That's called fate. How does the Shastra define fate? Results of actions in the past. So what is fate? You say results of those actions which I've done in the past. If I've stolen in the shop yesterday, then today the police knocking on my door, that's my fate. And this fate also includes prior lives, not just this life, but all lives. So fate is also equated to the word destiny. Whenever we say fate, it also means destiny. What is fate, destiny? In Sanskrit, karma palam. What is karma palam? Fruits of karma, fruits of action. Karma, action, palam, fruits. What do I mean by fruits of action? That means those actions, the results of actions. And in Sanskrit, the words fate or destiny is called prarabdha. Prarabdha. I'll be using this word from now on, prarabdha. So what is prarabdha? Fate, destiny. What is fate, destiny? Karma palam. What is karma palam? Results of actions. And in the Vedic horoscope, in the planetary positions at the time of birth are also indicators of the prarabdha. This is why in the Vedic culture, when a baby is born, you will bring an astrologer, a Vedic astrologer, and they will look at the date, the specific time, and look at the relation of the planets, and they can reveal some, the potential, what is going to happen in life. So the parents are not so surprised, like, why is my child going through so much pain? And why is my child exhibiting these attributes which we don't have as parents? So this Vedic horoscope can provide some potential indicators of the person's prarabdha karma, because they're carrying over that karma from past life. So that's the idea behind this astrology. Now, how to look at this astrology, by the way? to look at it in a proper light, just look at your fuel meter, like in the car. The fuel meter indicates the petrol in the car. Now, what runs the car? It is the petrol. So in that same way, what runs the vehicle? The petrol. So what runs your vehicle, the body? Prarabdha karma. And what indicates that? The planetary positions. So it is not the planetary positions that dictate the course of your life. It is the prarabdha karma that dictates the course of your life. Because often in horoscopes, we think, oh, okay, so alignment of the stars tells what kind of life I live. No, the alignment of the stars simply indicates, like the fuel meter of the car, what kind of potential prarabdha karma the person is to enjoy or to suffer. And what is the difference between fate and fatalism? Fatalism is, if I think that fate alone dictates everything or determines everything, that's called fatalism. Therefore, in fatalism, free will is rejected. Everything is determined already in advance. It's predetermined. And this creates two distortions, by the way. First, if I think like this, the person doesn't take any responsibility for anything that happens. That means if I get hurt, it's my fate. If I hurt another, it's their fate. This means the person is completely removed from taking any accountability for their actions towards themselves and their actions onto others. And then the second is whatever happens unpleasant, I blame a higher power. It's God's fault. This is called the escapist route, easy way out. Just offload everything to a higher power. Although there is a minor advantage with fatalism, and it is used in very isolated cases throughout the scriptures. I'll tell you how. Why am I saying this? Because often we say, okay, fatal, and we put it down. Nothing should be put down because that is called black or white thinking. You should look into it and inquire, how is this actually helping the person? For example, since Bhagavan is never unjust, this is the thinking of a fatalist, since he's never unjust, then whatever pain I am getting right now, that means he's giving me suffering to purify me. This means it makes hardships a little bit easier to deal with. In fact, in the Ramayana, there are sections which are quite strong in giving, read the Ramayana, it's like, are they talking about fatalism here? A lot of sections in Ramayana will be this sort of fatalistic approach. But the kind of mind that's reading this will not make that mistake. However, the beginner's mind will say, oh, okay, so it's all predetermined. So whatever suffering I'm getting, cancer, some disease, okay, so, Bhagavan is just purifying my body so that it makes my pain more bearable. So again, nothing should be put down with a full stop. You should look into it and inquire into it. So the whole Vedantic approach is self-inquiry into everything. Then what is fate? Fate is whereby there is an interplay of fate and free will. Therefore, fate is whereby fate and free will contribute to my future. That's called Shastra understanding. So today is not a result of just fate. Today is a result of fate and my free will done yesterday and done 10 minutes ago, done 5 minutes ago. That's called Shastric understanding. And Adi Shankara mentions 6 logical inconsistencies about the notion that everything is predetermined. So we've been saying, okay, fate is, give me some logical explanations. How is this so? In other words, let's give 6 logical explanations why the idea that there is absence of free will is flawed. So let's break down this idea. The first inconsistency that Adi Shankara gives is, he says, suppose you say, since Ishwara is doing everything, that means he's the karta bhokta, the doer and the enjoyer, then according to the law of karma, whoever is doing action must reap punya papa. That means must reap karma palam in the form of punya papa. Meaning all our sanchita, agami, prarabdha karma goes to Bhagavan. Okay, what is Prarabdha karma, what is happening right now. What is agami karma? What I do now is creating an effect in the future. That effect, which has not fructified yet, is called agami. What is sanchita karma? All of the karmas in all lifetimes. So all of these three are now supposedly all Bhagavans. This means all of my agami, sanchita, and prarabdha is Bhagavans. All of your agami, sanchita, prarabdha is also Bhagavans. So what does this mean? Whoever has punya papa is a samsari. This means that Ishwara, according to this logic, is the ultimate maha samsari. What does samsari mean? Samsari means unknowingly entangled in false notions. That means I don't know what I don't know. Meaning Ishwara is the most ignorant one, according to this logic. The one who mixes up truth and falsehood. However, our experience contradicts this. Why? Because we can clearly use our viveka. Since everything is Ishwara, including the mind that's using its viveka, and we use our viveka daily to discern what is truth and what is falsehood. So the logic breaks down. Inconsistency number 2. Since jiva doesn't get any karma, palam, that means since it all goes to God, that means the jiva is free from punya papa. This means all of us, you and I, are now free of punya papa. However, there's a logical problem with this. What is freedom from punya papa? This is called moksha. And what is moksha? Contentment with what is. Clarity, non-confusion. Again, this contradicts jiva's behavior. Because how do jivas act? They're constantly modifying circumstances to suit their likes and dislikes, implying discontent. Inconsistency number 3. If God is doing everything and nothing is in your hands, then all wars, false claims, poverty is because of God, since he's doing everything. Which means that God is not compassionate, but a sadist, responsible for all of the unpleasantness in this world. Furthermore, since he's supposed to be omniscient and omnipotent, that means all knowledge, the one who has all the knowledge to figure things out, and omnipotent, the one who has power, nothing can stop him, then why can't he put an end to all suffering? Again, the logic starts to break down if you start to look at it this way. Inconsistency number 4. If Lord is the doer, enjoyer, karta, bhokta, then it creates a love-hate relationship to divinity. Why so? Because all around you see that not a single person is enjoying uniformly. Some are suffering, some are enjoying lots, some are very lucky, some are not so lucky. In other words, it makes God partial. If you start thinking that we don't have free will and that God is the doer and enjoyer of everything. Inconsistency number 5. Since Bhagavan is the doer of all actions and we're just instruments, by the way, we're just, puppets, then the jiva, that means you and I, don't need to know what is right and what is wrong. This means Dharma Shastra is futile. Who needs Dharma Shastra? Why? Because Dharma is, who's the author of Dharma? It's Bhagavan. But this contradicts our experience. Why? Because we all desire to evolve, do we not? What is evolution? Dharma. That means we all have an interest in pursuing Dharma one way or the other. That implies the presence of free will. Does a dog want to improve? Does a cow want to improve, like give better quality milk? So it reads like cow self-help on better milk. Or your cat wants to meow in a more cuter way? No, because they don't have free will. Therefore, they don't have a need to improve. But all we do as human beings is we improve from the moment we get up to the moment we go to sleep, implying the presence of free will. Inconsistency number 6. Since we're all only instruments, you and I, and we don't have free will, then we should not have any conflict. What does this mean? Not having free will means I should not have conflict in life. But the reality is what? We all experience conflict from the morning we get up to the night that we go to sleep. Every moment we experience conflict. Should I snooze extra 5 minutes or should I get up? Even that is a conflict in itself. Should I come to class or not? Even that is a conflict. Should I speak to him or her about this or not? Even that is a conflict. What does this mean? We're in a helpless position, literally in a helpless position of having to choose A to B. It's funny, the fatalists will say, oh, you're in a helpless position. See, I told you there's no free will. But then I say we're in a helpless position to have to choose between A to B, implying presence of free will. In other words, wherever there is a choice, the option to make a choice, that's exactly where there's conflict. So conflict, free will, and choice, they're always together. Wherever there is conflict, that's where the presence of free will lies. So the very fact that we experience conflict indicates that you and I are blessed with the capacity to choose. And that choice is called free will. If there was no free will, then you wouldn't feel any conflict in life, nor would you have the need to think. Also, according to the Shastra, the only species that are free of conflict are animals. Why? Because they're not blessed with free will. They're only instruments of instincts according to the environmental circumstances that are going on. For example, a cow has no conflict whether it should become a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian, because its program says grass equals survival. But we say, is this rice really worth my survival, or is it something better for my survival? Maybe I should change. Maybe I should eat some meat. Maybe I should put some protein, add more calories, more carbohydrates. Even this is a conflict. Something so simple, even something that is so simple as eating, even that brings us conflict. Why? Because we have free will, ability to choose. So what's the difference between animals and humans in respect to fate? Animals, for them, only fate dictates their future. Human beings, fate and free will dictates their future. That is the only difference between animals and human beings. I say this because often we use this animal thing, like, they're so free, just be like a dog, just look at a dog, how free he is. That's a wrong comparison, because an animal does not have free will. So obviously they're going to be free of conflict. So we cannot use animals to try to imitate them and see how they're so happy and we should be like them. So the summary of this is your future, my future, all of our future is constantly shaped by two factors. The present free will actions in a form of planning, in a form of thinking. That's called free will. Whenever you plan, what should I do today? That's called free will. And you combine that with, or being interacted with, present fate. That's our experience. Present fate interacting with present free will. So again, why did Arjuna, or why did Krishna say, nimitta matram bhava, right? The be my instrument. Why would he say, what does it mean, be my instrument, Arjuna? To become an instrument of God means I align myself with his laws, orders through dharmic actions. Why should I align myself with dharmic actions? Because dharma, or let's say harmony of the universe, is governed by dharma. So how can I not align myself with that? Therefore, through the gift of free will, we can either choose dharma, align ourselves with dharma, and this is called, by the way, in religion, surrendering to the will of God. You've heard that before. What do you mean by surrender to the will of God? What I really mean is align yourself. That means put my own likes and dislikes away and align myself with the law of Dharma, with the harmony, because that is his will. Not my, what is my will? That's called likes and dislikes. That's called my will. His will is called Dharma. Therefore, surrender to his will. What does this specifically mean? It means I put my intellectual knowledge of Dharma above emotional attachments. We're attached to a lot of things, I get it. But Dharma should be the one that leads life, not emotional attachments. The other choice is submit to the bondage of Raga Dvesha. So either submit or follow dharmic laws and orders, or submit to your personal likes and dislikes, which are actually against our own favor, because they have a life of their own. They want, they want cakes, they want socializing, they want this, they want that, but it's essenceless. End of the day, it's just fleeting. I'm not saying now, all these things are useless, but there's a certain level of viveka, discrimination. When the gift of free will is aligned with Dharma Shastra, then you become instrument of Ishwara. And that has unimaginable rewards, by the way, because you are living according to his will. What kind of rewards? Unimaginable rewards. There are rewards nevertheless. Yes, Nima?
In this case, Arjuna was in a tricky situation of facing a war, and he had to kill his own family, right?
Yeah.
He had the free will of choosing between to fight a war or to avoid a war.
Yeah.
Because the Krishna was present there, and he gave him the confidence that fighting the war is the right thing to do, he was able to choose the right course of action.
Yeah.
But for us, when we are in a tricky situation, and especially when we are in tricky situations, we don't know what is dharmic and adharmic.
True.
Where should we go for getting that clear understanding of what is dharma and what is the right course of action for me? And I was thinking of one scenario, like in office, when I have my team members, and one of the team members is not performing, and according to company guidelines, we are giving that person time frame of 2 months or 6 months to improve on performance.
Yeah.
That person is also even trying, but he's not able to come up to the learning curve, and we had to let that person go.
Right.
And we have to ask him to leave the organization. And I know, because he's my team member, that he has a family to support, and it will take a lot of time to get a new job.
Yeah.
At that time, I feel, even though I know I'm doing the right thing of asking that person to leave, because after giving the allotted time, he's not able to perform well.
True.
But at the same time, I feel the guilty, or I feel the sadness. Not the guilty as such, but I feel sad for him. So thus, performing dharmic actions, if they are not giving us happiness, like even in case of Arjuna, he was not happy after the war was concluded.
Yeah.
And in the scenario that I told you, I was not happy to ask that person to leave, even though we did the right thing.
Yeah.
What's the use of performing according to the dharmic laws of action? And the other question was, how do I know that my actions are aligned to the God's will? For Arjuna, God was right there. For us, we do not realize God.
So, good. I got the question. So how do we know whether our actions are aligned to the highest good or to God's will? Let's bring it more down to situation. So the only choice that we have is, it's called Swa Dharma. That means situational. So we're always faced with a situation of having to make a decision, A or B, right? Now, either decision is going to have some emotional aftermath, right? It's going to be guilt or maybe happiness. Now, in some situations, we do make the right decisions, right? But then we have this guilt. Now, this is something that we have to deal with ourselves, because this can also come from childhood. So this also now depends how we make a decision in the present. So this means that when we see something that needs to be done, then you need to look at that and say, okay, if this doesn't get done, what's the consequences? Right? They're far greater than just my single guilt that's probably gonna ensue later on. So this means I need to look at a bigger picture and hold my vision on what needs to be done according to the whole, whatever that whole is. Maybe it could be the whole organization, it could be the whole family, but there's always that vision on a bigger picture, and we hold that vision there to sustain the harmony of the whole. It's just like the last example. If a single employee that is not doing their job starts to retain their position far too long in the organization, what's going to happen? Their attitude is going to bring others down. And now it's kind of like, one bad apple starts to rot and affects all the other apples. So this means we need to put, again, our intellectual discrimination sometimes above our emotional attachments.
Andre, is it that because of our impurities of mind, etc.,
yeah,
sort of prohibit us from taking the course of action which is aligned with Dharma? And once we sort of purify ourselves, we'll be able to take better decisions, and we won't have to sort of think about whether we are doing right and whether we are behaving according to Dharma or not.
And if you lose sight of that bigger picture, then you get narrowed down into like a single object becomes the world to you. It becomes so important, and you lose track of everything else. And that in itself pollutes the mind.
So my situation is where I'm stuck is, most of the time I value my intellect and I'm able to take the right decision. But for example, in this case, when I have to ask the employee to let go, I had no second thought on my decision, but because of compassion towards a human being, on the humanity grounds, I was not able to cope up with my emotion of letting that person go and leaving that person into that situation. So I think I was feeling kind of responsibility on myself too, that I was not able to do enough for that person. And now how would that person would cope up? And sometimes, I try to help those employees by telling them, okay, you can find jobs in some other company. You would have the right fit there. And I had some friends, working there. But the question is, where should I stop? These are my emotions that are letting me concentrate. Instead of concentrating on myself, on my growth, on my evolution, sure. I'm just spending my time on others.
Yeah, sure. So it seems to me that, this is the thing. That means you've done your part. You said you did console the person. That means you've done the best, so this means there's nothing more you could have done than this, other than just say, here's some other options for you. So this means you can also focus on what you have done, because our focus is on what I didn't do, but there's always things that I could have done. So it's like a never ending cycle. It's like, okay, I've done this, I've done 5 things, but what about the 6th thing? So focus on what you have done right. And that's going to also help you change your emotions. Because suppose if you didn't do anything, then you can start blaming yourself. But you did do something according to your best potential, best self in that moment. Any other opinions on this matter? How would you, if any other comments?
I have 2 quick ones.
Yeah.
First of all, firing that guy could have been the kick up the bottom that he needed to maybe move on and improve with his life. So getting fired is not such a bad thing for some people. And also, Anyani, surely it's possible for people with clear-cut knowledge as well to still make the wrong decisions. Is that possible, Andre?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they're still a limited human being with limited knowledge and limited power. We're still a limited jiva. So even though with knowledge, surely we're still going to make mistakes because we just don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
Good observation. So any other response? Because Thomas has got a great observation. Robert, do you want to say?
I always said to my managers, you don't fire anyone, they fire themselves.
Yeah, their own actions cause them to be in that situation where you just have to be let go.
Yeah. In fact, I found if you sit with someone and you lay out for them what they have done over a period of time and say to them, what would you do if you were me? They'll often say to you, I would let me go. And that gets rid of the conflict.
Good. Yeah. So these are all great advices. Amina, is this help, this different perspectives?
Yes, it does.
So according to Dharma, Arjuna's duty was to fight the war because he's a Kshatriya. He's a protector of the society. But before the fight took place, what happened? Even though Arjuna intellectually knows what he should do, what happened? His own likes and dislikes in that moment arose, called raga dvesha. What I find appealing and non-appealing, repulsive and attractive. Specifically, what kind of narrative came? Bhishma and Drona are my dear teachers. They're my dear family. How can I kill my own guru? Attachments, right? Kind of like attachment to an employee. So Arjuna experiencing the same situation. So this means in that moment, there's a conflict in Arjuna's mind between Dharma and Adharma. Arjuna knows intellectually, I need to do what I know to be right. But my own attachments are putting a delay onto that. Therefore, I'm unable to take action. So it's an inner war between what I know to be right and my own likes and dislikes. This is the most common situation all human beings undergo every day. Dronam cha bhishmam cha jayadratam cha karnan tatanyana piyodha viran maya hatam stvam jahima vyatishtaha yudhyasva jeta sirane sapatnan.
May you destroy Drona, Bhishma, Jayadrata, and Karna as well as other heroic warriors who are already destroyed by me. Do not hesitate. Fight. You will conquer the enemies in battle.
Maya hatan. According to the law of karma and dharma, it says Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, and Karna have already died. This means their next life is already set up. Yes, Arjuna, your guru called Drona is also going to die, but he is on the side of Adharma. Yes, the employee will get fired, but he is not performing the job per his job description as initially agreed when he decided to work. And universal Dharma is more important than your individual guru. Universal Dharma is more important than your individual likes and dislikes for certain objects. Therefore, Arjuna, use your viveka to see this. You are fighting for what is eternal, not for minuscule, time-bound, 50, 60-year-old likes and dislikes that are going to disappear and no one's even going to notice. You're fighting what is eternal, which always gets a higher precedence, a higher priority than my individual small life that's only going to last tops 80 years. So in the case of Arjuna, he's being explicitly told what is the fate of his dear ones. But in our case, our fate is unknowable. And the fate of those that are close to us is also unknowable. This is the only difference. Even astrology for this reason isn't entirely accurate because so whoever told you something about your astrology or your path, from then to now, how many times have you applied free will to your life? Dozens. So from the time they said something to now, there is hardly any resemblance to your life. So in that aspect, even astrology loses its meaning. Also in our case, because, Bhagavan is not telling us, okay, see this person over there, they're going to die. So, you don't have to bother so much. So in our case, we can't say to a sick person, oh, don't worry, she's already dead. Why go the extra mile to take care of a soon-to-be corpse? wouldn't do that. Why? Because to do that to your wife or husband, that is an adharmic thought. And that's going to sting back in the form of guilt and shame tomorrow or later on. So even if we know that someone's going to die, we have no choice but to continue applying Dharma. Because if we don't, that in itself is going to sting back. Whereas Arjuna, he's a little bit luckier because, Bhagavan is just saying, all these people that you're looking at, the Kauravas, they're all going to die. So it makes it a lot easier to move forward and do your duty. But for us, it's not so easy, as Meena was explaining. It's a lot harder. We have to discern. And even if we do discern, we can make a mistake, as Thomas was saying, because we don't have all knowledge. So all we can do is apply best actions to the best of our abilities and understand that no matter what action I apply, it is never a complete action. It is limited, which is fine, but at least I've applied something. I've thought about it. Then it says, Ma vyatishtaha. For this reason, Arjuna, knowing this, don't be upset. Yudhaswa, which means fight. In other words, just like a policeman doesn't say, I don't touch guns. Does a policeman do that? No. Because the duty of a policeman is to deal with guns. That's his Swa Dharma. In the same way, Arjuna, boldly and proudly take to this war because you are a born Kshatriya. Unlike a Brahmana who can just sit and study all day. Does the Brahmana go and fight? No. Because Brahmana's job is to educate, to study, to learn. Kshatriya's job is to be active. This is called Swa Dharma. If a Brahmana starts working as a Kshatriya, then a Brahmana is not going to be happy and he's not going to do a good job. And if a Kshatriya starts to sit and study and he starts to teach, that's not going to be a good work either. So this means I need to know what is my strength in life and pursue only that, because you're going to suck at anything else if it's not in line with your highest unique talents. Finally, Krishna assures Arjuna and he says, you will win, not because you are powerful, but because Dharma is on your side. Sanjaya uvacha etachrutva vachanam keshavasya kritanjalir vepa manah kiriti namaskritva bhuya evaha krishnam sagad gadam bhita bhita pranamya.
Sanjaya said, hearing these words of Krishna, Arjuna, the crowned one, with folded hands and trembling, saluting Lord Krishna, overwhelmed with fear and saluting repeatedly, spoke again in a faltering voice.
I continue reading the description.
Sankara explains Arjuna's condition here. Stricken with pain, he is overcome with fear. And because of the rapture springing up in him, he is overwhelmed with affection. His eyes are filled with tears, and his throat is choked with intense conflicting emotions. Therefore, his words are not very clear and are faltering. Sagadaga. Then too, he is very frightened, and repeatedly saluting Pranamaya, he talks again. Fear has overtaken him again.
Thank you. So Sanjaya is here clearly mentioning Arjuna's condition. How is now Arjuna feeling? So far, he understands that Bhagavan is not responsible for the suffering or the enjoyments of anyone. What is the function of Bhagavan? It is karma pala data, according to Jiva's free will. What is karma pala data? The giver of results of action. So what is the function of Bhagavan in respect to the Jivas? Karma pala data, the one who gives results of actions according to Jiva's free will. For example, a murderer is already dead even before he faces the judge in court. And it's not the judge that sends the murderer or the killer to prison. What sends the killer to prison? Robert was saying this earlier, according to the employee, right? Say it, Robert.
His actions.
Good. So it's the killer's own actions that send him to court. So what's then the job of what's the point of the judge then? What does a judge do?
He's a mere instrument.
Yeah, good. So he's a mere instrument to reaffirm, to uphold the principle of Dharma. That's all a judge does. Now, how does this apply to Lord's compassion? Because remember, initially, Arjuna said, seeing everyone go into your mouth, being eaten and swallowing, and all of this going on, destruction, where is space for your compassion? So let's talk about this now. So Lord's compassion, first of all, doesn't mean he alters karma palam of person. Karma palam means the results of past actions. So if I've stolen something yesterday in a shop, Lord's not going to like take that out of my track record magically, no matter how much I pray. So he's not going to alter. So then what is this compassion? This compassion of the Lord is in the form of maintenance of universal orders, like law of karma, like law of dharma. Maintenance, unceasing sustenance of these laws. In other words, Lord, for example, Lord compassionately delivers papa, palam, this means undesirable fruits, to the one who is irresponsible. Now, how is this compassionate for the one who is irresponsible if they deserve punishment, if they deserved unpleasant treatment? Well, it is not really, well, it is compassion because it's going to teach them a lesson, number one. But onto whom is it more compassionate? Onto the ones who would have otherwise been damaged by his irresponsible actions. Therefore, Lord is indeed compassion because he's the one who protects you by creating the principle of police force on the streets. Similarly, when that irresponsible person who now was, doing some silly things, when the moment they decide to do something pleasant, something that is right, what happens? Bhagavan compassionately is obligated to bring punya palam immediately. That's called compassion. This means you can make all of the mistakes in the world, but one single right action you put into the field, already Bhagavan is going to reward you for that. That's called compassion. So Bhagavan doesn't go, this woman's been doing, all sorts of silly things in her life, and now she's doing something proper for the first time in her life. I don't like her. I'm not going to reward her for that one single action. That's not how Bhagavan is. That's how we are. But Bhagavan is limitless compassion, always perfectly keeping track record on anything one-to-one ratio that you do. So this, yes, Robert?
This is a complex passage, really, psychologically, and implications for free will.
Yeah.
Because Sanjaya relates to Dhritarashtra that Bhishma and Drona and Dhritarashtra are kind of going to die. And it becomes, and the whole reason the war took place is because Dhritarashtra was so enamored of his son Duryodhana that he wouldn't follow Dharma. This is his chance now to save Duryodhana because he now knows that Bhima will kill him if he can hear what's being said. But what Shankara says is, why did Dhritarashtra not hear when the message was so clear? Why was he not here? Because of the force of what was meant to happen, it was destiny.
Yeah.
So the implication there is that there's a much greater force that overrides someone's ability to hear something which is outside of oneself. That has implications for free will.
Yeah, good. So in other words, that's a good point. So in other words, the force is so great. Did you ever have that situation where you're so convinced about that notion that you're just unwilling to hear anything else? In fact, we hear this in the US president's doing a very good job at this. Right? No matter what you say, I mean, it's still fraud, man, right? So in other words, the momentum is so great. My narrative has been going on for so long, it just simply turned off to any opposing opinions. The moment you say anything opposing, I will fire you. So yes, it does seem like I have no free will, but actually I still do have a free will because any moment someone else can come with a convincing enough argument and suddenly I will go, you got a good point. Let me change my approach.
Andre, I also have a question.
Yes, please.
Basically, in the context of God's compassion, what are your thoughts on forgiveness from the Lord? Because if he sort of then forgives us for our actions, then it would be going against the laws. So can he even forgive us for whatever wrong we do? Is there
yeah, sure. I understand the question. Thank you, Kritika. So Kritika is asking about where is this now forgiveness word coming into the picture? Forgiveness, first of all, is not necessarily a Vedic idea, because forgiveness implies a one-off. In other words, this means I can, now create one big mess somewhere and then ask for forgiveness, and I'm relieved of all of my irresponsibility in one quick shot. So Bhagavan is more accurately to look at as the one who provides a one-to-one ratio according to my present actions that are occurring right now. So if I'm doing I'm constantly irresponsible things, and then I decide, I cannot continue like this. This is just not going to give me a good life. I can see now clearly, because I can see someone else who did the same as I have, and they have, suffered. So I'm going to change my approach today. The moment you do that, that is what you call as though you're being forgiven. But we don't use this approach. We say that you've just changed your actions, which are now demanding a different kind of karma palam, a different kind of response from the environment. And that response is now going to be more conducive with bringing you more success in life. However, it doesn't still relieve you from all of the responsibilities you've done before, because you're still going to, have all of those people that you made angry, they're going to come chasing you. However, now I have a choice. I can say, okay, I'm sorry, I was coming from a wrong place. I was stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. So this means now all I have is my present free will. From that standpoint, I can now continue changing my future in a positive way.
Thank you.
Yeah, so no one's being forgiven, right? It's just depends on my actions. So far, we've seen that God has no power to create exceptions for anyone. No pardon is given to anyone. Suppose that you and I are going to parachute and we jump, and you pull your parachute and it's not working. It's like, uh-oh, you're probably seeing your life, end in 1 minute or so. And you start to pray, you do a little Vedic chant that you've learned in your maybe Shri Rudram. It's going to take 17 minutes, so you're not going to be falling that long. And you say, please, Lord, stop gravity for me. The fact is, no matter how much donations you've given before this, how many families you've helped, how many people you've truly been a good person, Lord is not going to create an exception for you and stop gravity. Why? Because if he did, then yes, you would be saved. But how many people would die? Countless, because they will all float up, and then when they fall, they will break everything. Their legs, their arms, their head. In other words, I got saved at the expense of millions dying. This means laws have to continue uninterrupted for the entire universe to work harmoniously. This is a fact. No one gets an exception. No one is, quote, forgiven. They have to address their past irresponsibility. Just like a traffic light, for example. Suppose you've got a sick person in your car and they're going to die, right? You need to get into a hospital very quickly. And there's a red light. Is that red light going to suddenly kind of go green just so it can get you faster to the hospital? No. In other words, even though it could, it's not going to. Because if it did, 20 more people would die, being major traffic accident. Yeah, sure, you saved your family member, but other family members suffered. Therefore, nothing can go out of place even for 1 second, because if it did, everything would fall apart. So the question is, what is the function of Bhagavan? I asked this last week in respect to the jivas, in respect to us. The answer is, Lord, that is Bhagavan, is both Dharma Raja. What is Dharma Raja? The king of Dharma, the one who supplies the dharmic principles that pervade the entire universe and keep this world harmoniously functioning, which you and I daily use to benefit and profit from. And the second, besides Dharma Raja, he is also the Karma Pala Data. This means he is the giver of the results of actions that we put out into the field every single day. It also means that all knowledge, all power, otherwise called Ishwara, otherwise called Bhagavan, otherwise called God, is neither cruel nor compassionate. He is Dharma Raja and Karma Pala Data. entirely impersonal, simply delivering the results of our actions, done according to our free will.
I think that's really liberating, because it means our lives are in our own hands without the effect of something else.
Okay, and understanding these two principles of the Lord, he's the Dharma Raja, the impersonal one, and the Karma Paladata, what does it mean to us as living human beings who are here every day trying to make the best of our living? It means that any Papa Karma, what is Papa Karma? Anything that I've done irresponsible some time ago, that's going to come back in an unpleasant way. That's called Papa Karma. Yes, it does bring suffering, no doubt. In fact, we will continue going through some unpleasant situations many, many more times, because we have how many more years to live? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? So no doubt many unpleasant things will happen, not only to you, but to those who are close to you. So it will happen. But how do you now look at this? How do you accept Papa Karma as a part of creation? How do you maturely, what kind of attitude should I have towards sufferings onto me and onto my family members? There's one method in the Vedic scriptures, and that is to change your attitude about it. For example, every time something unpleasant happens to you, then instead of complaining and saying, why me, right? All you do is you say, okay, so this is one more Papa point exhausted, because there's unpleasantness. So this means there's less Papa weight in the future, less suffering in the future. So it makes pain a little bit more maturely acceptable. In fact, you can observe this in young children. Once their intellect sufficiently develops, they start to get attracted to accident-prone events. This happens because there is a mixture of past life habits. So if I was irresponsible in past life, that's going to carry over. So the moment my intellect develops as a child, then what kind of habits, vasanas or samskaras, will the person exhibit? Those which are in line with the person, the jiva, the subtle body that was there in the past life. And that's going to contribute to the accidents in this life. But it's not only the past life habits, it's also these life events that have contributed. So in other words, you can never really say whether the event that's happening to a child is because of past life or whether it is because of this life. It is always a mixture of two. It is not a one-faceted reality. It is a multifaceted reality. Objection now. If this law of karma has to take its course, because that's what we learned so far, right? It has to take its course according to this prarabdha. Then what's the point of praying? What's the point of prayashchitta karma? Isn't that a waste of time? That's the objection now. Yes, Meena?
No.
No? Okay, good.
I think it's to you said that we have to align our own action with the laws of the Lord or the laws of the universe. So we do prayer and paschatap to reinforce in us those dharmic values.
Good.
For example, if I have committed a sin, I would say, God, I have done this, that was adharmic. Now please give me strength so that I can be more dharmic. In the entire process, I'm aligning myself to the laws of the Lord.
And those actions which Meena speaks of are what's called Punya Karma. That means it is not a waste of time, because Punya is opposed to Papam. In other words, prayer or prayashchitta karma has a neutralizing effect on what is to happen. For example, suppose a stone is falling down right now towards your head. Do you have to just stand there and suffer and take the pain? Suppose you can't move, right? So obviously, I know you think just move to the left or the right. Suppose you can't do that. What are you going to do? How are you going to neutralize the force of that impact on your head?
Put your hand on your head.
Suppose there's other rocks around you. What would you do with those rocks?
Throw the rocks at the stone.
Yeah, good. So in other words, a stone's falling down. You can take another stone and throw it up. And what's it going to do? The neutralizing impact is going to minus the final blow. This is called prayashchitta karma. So even though there's no guarantee that I'm even going to aim properly, but at least it does contribute somewhat to neutralizing the force. Or suppose you take a allergic producing food and now it's in your stomach and there's an allergy. Do we just have to now take the pain and just suffer? No. What do? We take a neutralizing medicine to negate the impact. Therefore, prayashchitta / prayer, what does it do? It creates agami. What is agami? Agami is that which is yet to fructify. It creates agami, which neutralizes prarabdha karma. That's why prayer does work. Obviously, an objection is going to come now. And the objection is going to be, okay, I've done my prayashchitta karma. I've prayed so many times, but there was no neutralizing force. I still got the blow. What does this mean? It means that the agami is lesser compared to the prarabdha karma. For example, suppose a meteor is falling. No matter how many rocks we throw at that meteor, it is not going to neutralize that impact because the momentum is far too great of that prarabdha karma. Yes, it did make an impact, but it was so minute that you didn't even notice it. Therefore, this neutralizing depends on the relative strength of either your prayashchitta karma or of the prarabdha karma. You just never know which one it is, but it's going to be a fight between them, and we just don't know which one's stronger, but it does have some form of impact. For example, suppose that you go to a doctor and you say, can you cure my disease? What's a smart doctor going to do now? How are they going to answer this question? Can you cure my disease?
It depends.
Ah, beautiful. It depends on how many factors. It depends on, in our case, it will be 3 factors. What kind of factors are they? Your condition, Mr. or Mrs., is either totally curable. This means I can give you an injection, problem solved. I can do a surgery or some kind of a surgical removal, problem solved. Instant cure. Your condition can either be also partially curable. This means I can give you a tablet. Now, this tablet may not get rid of the disease, but at least it's going to create a manageable condition. So it's not going to totally eliminate it. Or the condition can be beyond remedy, like cancer or AIDS, suppose. In other words, you can never say definitively if the prarabdha karma can be neutralized completely because you just don't know. But still, the cure of prayashchitta may work. You just don't know. But it doesn't warrant you to not use prayer or to avoid prayashchitta karma. Okay, and then the verse says, Keshavasya etad vachanam shrutva. Arjuna's knowledge gathers that Lord is neither cruel nor compassionate, which means in the presence of Ishwara, laws and orders are meticulously coordinated according to each jiva's prarabdha karma. Accurately, 1-to-1 ratio. And then vepa manaha. Arjuna is trembling, realizing that he can't escape his own position in life. That means his position is where? In the battlefield, and his position is to kill his guru and grandsire. That's a hard thing. Imagine having to kill your guru. The one that's taught you everything, now you're going to kill him. In other words, Arjuna, you cannot escape what is about to happen. Just as you cannot escape, for example, gravity. Gravity is always acting on us. Even if we think about gravity or don't think about it, it's still acting on us every day. So there's no point resisting gravity. There's no question of liking or disliking gravity. What's the point? I'm wasting my time liking or disliking gravity. So then what can we only do to gravity in relation to gravity? All you can do is surrender to the presence of the ever-present law and order called gravity. Because it is true right now. It doesn't care whether I like it or dislike it, it is still working on me, even while I'm thinking how I like it or dislike it. And in reference to surrendering to Dharma, let's apply this to Dharma. What does Dharma mean? Dharma, how do I surrender to Dharma? It means I intellectually appreciate cause and effect, the presence of cause-effect relationship. It is in the form of surrender to the fact that law of cause and effect is always functioning. It's a physical expression of that understanding. That's called surrendering to Dharma. And then bhita bhitaha. So now Arjuna is frightened because he cannot escape Dharma and Karma. He finally sees that I'm helplessly put in this situation. And if I escape the situation, that's going to create more suffering than I can imagine, because I'm abandoning my Swadharma as a Kshatriya. And this is a common reaction. First is fear, because now you realize, oh my goodness, I cannot escape my life, right? I have to pursue my life. I actually have to live out my life. I cannot get away from it. The first reaction is fear. But then through the course of time, what happens? That fear converts into bhakti, into devotion, because you actually now start surrendering to, as we said earlier, to gravity. There's no point fighting it. For this reason, bhuya eva aha krishnam namaha kritva. And then we're done. Realizing this, Arjuna gives namaskara, indicating his personal surrender of his personal will, that is likes and dislikes, to the will of God. However, finally, sagad gadam, even though he's saying that, he has a choked voice. Why? Why does Arjuna have a choked voice? Even though he's finally, all of this reality starting to dawn upon him, all I can do is surrender, but despite saying that, I'm still speaking with a choked voice. That means a throat that is tight. That means there's fear there. It means Arjuna is unable to assimilate what he saw. Why is this? Because Arjuna is being given an artificial divya chakshuhu. Same thing with an artificial drug-induced experience, like LSD or what do they have these days? It's not born from a natural understanding. It's born from an emotional high, appearing as permanent knowledge. You know, persons like on drugs and they go, everything's clear now. I see reality. It's all good now. But that is what? That's just an emotional high that's going to come and go. So it doesn't produce proper understanding. And Arjuna is going through the same experience. Therefore, sagad gadam, choked voice. So what's the natural way to gain divya chakshuhu? Karma yoga. Chapter 3. That's the only proper way to gain divya chakshuhu, through wisdom. Wisdom in action equals karma yoga. And seeing finally the vastness of Bhagavan's power, Arjuna praises him now between verse 36 to 44, where we will see the attitudes of a ripened bhakta. That means, what does it mean to be a mature bhakta? The one who is devotion, has devotion with a discerning intellect. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all behold good things, may no one suffer.